Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. We apologize for the bit of the delay on my part in welcoming tonight's guest to discuss about the Major League Baseball, which officially began today. Without further ado, I am very honored to welcome back my guest tonight. He's been with us before. It is Alex Patt, the writer for Cubbies Crib, part of the fan-sided network, where I also do my writing as well. Alex, thank you for joining me tonight. It's been a long time since we last had you, but happy opening day in Major League Baseball, I guess, today.
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. It's good to talk to you. Good to be back on. And every opening day is always special, and it's good to go on the app and look at all the scores again. And it's kind of
Yeah.
that refreshing feeling, it's you wish it was a holiday, like many people say it should be. And I do think it should be a holiday, but I don't know if we'll ever get that wish, but we'll treat it like one. Let's say that.
Absolutely. All right. So the Cubs, unfortunately, are already off to a 0-2 start because they were in Japan for the MLB series against the Los Angeles Dodgers a couple of weeks ago. And let me ask you a couple of questions regarding the series. First of all, I understand that this is not the real start, and I know a lot of people openly complain about it, and that's understandable. You get up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or even 3 o'clock on the West Coast time zone to get up and watch it. Now, if you're a Dodger fan, you have every reason and every incentive to get up early to watch this. Alex, I want to know, did you pay any attention to the game despite the early time zone, or you're having to wake up early?
Yeah, I mean, I got up early the first game, and I knew it was going to be one of those things where I'd watch a little bit of it, and then eventually I'd have to drive to work because my commute was kind of during the later innings. The second game, I tried to get up, and I didn't. I woke up, and it was already, I don't know, the fourth or fifth inning, something like that. So I saw a little bit of it. I couldn't watch all of it, and from what I did see for the first game, the first few innings were fun. Shota pitched, shutout baseball, didn't give up a hit. Miguel Amaya drove in a run.
Yeah.
But then things kind of went off from there. Did I watch every second of it? No, but I did consume what I
Me neither.
could. So it's tough. It really is tough. Between waking up and just work schedules, I head into the office about 7:20 every morning. So just kind of overlapped with that. Just one of those things where I'm sure it was difficult for them too to get on a completely different sleep schedule because the Dodgers had to too. But even think of it, the Dodgers play in Los Angeles. That's closer to Japan technically than Chicago. So, and yes, you play your spring training games in Arizona, but that's still going halfway around the world. I know the experience they had there in Japan was second to none. They were at a party with Shota and Seiya hosting it. They got to experience the culture, the fans. That's all got to be great for them. But to play games overseas in a completely different time zone like that on the other side of the world, that's got to be tough, especially since you haven't even fully ramped up for the regular season at that point.
Right. And I say this as a Cubs fan, but as a Japanese American who follow, what's going on in Japan, read and write Japanese on a regular basis. I can tell that, the 90% of the country or even the fans in the Tokyo Dome were pretty much pro Dodgers, even though that game was technically a home game for the Cubs, believe it or
Right.
not. And I say this because, the Dodgers, because of that advantage and having already cornered the Asian market, having played at South Korea last year, and then this year in Tokyo, I don't think it was about the motivation, on the players' part. But I say this with utmost respect for the guys who had to travel to get there, on both sides of the team. I think the Dodgers themselves, because of what I just said, they had more incentive to win, and they were given a pretty favorable setup. Going to a place that's 90% pro Dodgers and Ohtani this and Ohtani that on every major news outlets day in and day out. Did you kind of felt that way watching the game that the Dodgers were? I understand on paper they're a better team, personnel wise, but did you kind of sense that maybe Dodgers had more incentive to win this series more than the Cubs did?
Well, I definitely think they had more advantages, like you said. Obviously, the crowd there were a lot more Dodgers supporters because of Ohtani and probably because of Roki Sasaki, too. Let's not forget about him. And
Right, and
obviously,
Yamamoto as well, yeah.
and Yamamoto, right, exactly. So, I mean, and think about it. Those guys, Yamamoto and Sasaki, were only just playing in America recently. Like they're used to that environment still. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's been here for a little while, but having guys that just recently pitched there, I mean, that's got to be an advantage too. And obviously, having that support behind you. What's annoying from my perspective is both those games were Cubs homes games. You should have split the two, in my opinion. You should have had one as a home game for the Cubs, the other as a home game for the Dodgers, and then you could have evenly split the remaining games at Dodger Stadium at Wrigley Field. So, I mean, it's weird to complain that you get two home games over there by the rules, but that also takes away the games at Wrigley Field from your own place. So I think if you would have split the two, because correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's how they handled the London series against the Cardinals. I think it was 1-1. I could be wrong on that, but I would have liked one home, one road game for each team.
There's no question. Do you like this the idea of Major League Baseball expanding on a global scale, or do you just don't like the fact that it kind of overshadows the the opening day here in America, and that the trip itself is so taxing mentally and physically, and that you have to kind of attach the wins and losses to have those players go halfway around the world to play. Do you like that setup, or do you feel like this is at some point, maybe run its course?
From a cultural standpoint, I think it's awesome that baseball is a international, global game. But logistics are tough. They just are. I mean, maybe hundreds of years in the future when every team just hits a teleportation device and goes to another country or something. But I mean,
right.
I can only imagine what it'd be like if a team had to constantly fly over the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, whether you're playing in Japan, whether you're playing in Korea or Europe, like, the UK or, wherever. It's just the logistics are always so complicated with that. But I mean, like I said, from a cultural aspect, I think it's great. Now, another thing that I wish they did, because the Cubs did play in Japan back in, it was either 99 or 2000, I believe.
2000. I watched a game myself 25 years ago as a
against the Mets, right?
About to graduate, and now 25 years later, I watched the Cubs and the Dodgers here in America, and they got off to a loss again, and then they also lost the game against the Mets in their very first game also, I think 25 years ago, with Sammy and Mike Piazza,
Mark Grace. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Although I
Now,
doubt that maybe Grace was already maybe did he leave for Arizona by then?
He left for Arizona in 2001 when they won the World Series in Arizona.
After,
so
yes. Okay.
2000 was his last year. But correct me if I'm wrong, since you watched those games, weren't they like right at opening day? Like they played and then the season started. There wasn't like that week and a half gap in between. I believe it was closer to actual opening day.
Yeah, it was similar, I think, ordeal too. 2-game series at the Tokyo Dome, and then you play the same teams in Japan, Tokyo Giants and Hanshin Tigers also. And it was the same ordeal with the Yankees and the Rays in 2004 as well. So it's becoming a more of a a regular thing. It's somehow that maybe the fans kind of have to, I guess, learn to accept it. If you can, excuse me, I've been dealing with a cold myself, but you can choose to not watch it if you don't like getting up that early to watch a baseball game anyway.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. And, I think about it too, the whole situation where you can argue that going overseas, maybe closer to opening day, while still not, difficult, or I should say it's still difficult. Maybe it's easier to go than, closer to opening day because you're not in the middle of spring training. However, the counter argument is if you go over right before opening day, well, then you have to fly halfway across the globe again, and then you have to get right into the regular season. So, that's like you're having to get your body back to where it was while the season's going on. I think the idea behind this for this year was the teams fly over, they play, they come back, they have more spring training so they can kind of get acclimated back to the regular schedule again, and then they start the regular season. There's never going to be a perfect solution, I suppose, but
right.
it's so much. Sometimes I'd say it's easier to watch when your team's not in it because you don't have anything at stake. Because remember, San Diego and the Dodgers played there last year. I'm sure the Dodgers will play again next year. Maybe they'll play the Yankees or the Mets or something next year at the Tokyo Dome.
Who knows? But now that the Cubs are 0-2 right now, you being a Cub fan, you write for CubbiesCrib.com. I'm a Cub fan myself. Where is your level of concern right now on a scale of 1 to 10, having the Cubs start 0-2 and now they begin their Rio opening day against the very tough Arizona Ball Club?
Yeah, and this isn't just based off these first two games. Don't take it just as that, but I'm kind of at a 4 or 5 because this schedule is very tough to start the year. It is incredibly tough, and you could be putting yourself in a hole again potentially if you don't have enough figured out or you're not playing well. I like the Kyle Tucker move, obviously. I think they made a few individual moves that were good as well. I don't want to say you had a bad offseason, but I still don't think there's enough there yet for me to fully say this is a contender. You made some changes in the bullpen. We'll see how that goes. Bullpens are fickle.
Right.
The bullpen in spring training, not that great, but they're also just getting ramped up. So, that's not always the best indicator. I just really wish the starting staff, they really would have locked that in and added a high-end guy, top 3 rotation guy. Because if you look at the rotation now, I'm a big fan of Jameson Tyone, but he should not be your 2 on a contending team. He should be your 4. I think if you had another guy next to Steele between him and Imanaga, or have Steele 2 and this other aces 1, I would feel a lot better. Now, I am intrigued that they're giving Ben Brown a chance to be the 5 starter. I'd rather see that than Colin Ray. I mean, Colin Ray can be in the bullpen, a multi-inning reliever, spot starter, fine. But I think Ben Brown is still working on some things. There's going to be some growing pains, but I'd rather see him get a shot because he has more high end to what he throws. So, and I look at the lineup too. It's another lineup where I say you got some guys, you got some good players. Kyle Tucker's a really good player. Ian Happ is a good player. Seiya Suzuki's a very good player. Dansby Swanson, when healthy, is a good player. Nico Horner, when healthy, is a good player. We'll see what PCA is. Matt Shaw is probably going to go through some growing pains. It's not a bad lineup, but it's not spectacular either. I mean, you look at the Dodgers and you look at the Phillies and you look at the Braves and you look at the Padres and you have some of these lineups that are just littered with stars. The Cubs have good players. I don't think they have a lot of stars. I think Kyle Tucker is a star. I think Dansby Swanson, for his position, when healthy, is an all-star, but he's not a Trey Turner or a healthy Carlos Correa, anything like that. And I think Ian Happ's a really underrated player. I wouldn't consider him a star, but I think he's a very solid player. But, I mean, you look at some of these other lineups when you have the Phillies who have Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto, and I guess Nick Castellanos, he's fallen off a little bit, but still a good name. Obviously, the Dodgers have one of the best lineups ever. The Braves, when healthy, I mean, Acuna's hurt, but you still have Ozzy Albies and Matt Olson. And
Right.
the Mets have Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. You look at these other NL teams and you see these stars in this lineup, and those are the difference makers. If you had another legit huge big name star to go along with Kyle Tucker, then wow, I think you're really looking at a good lineup. We'll see what PCA does this year. One thing I am high on is I do think Miguel Amaya can keep playing pretty well. I like where he's been. But we'll see. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad lineup. I just don't think it's murderer's row either. And the rotation, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I don't think people look at that rotation right now and say, wow, that is a scary lineup that is going to beat us. I don't think anyone's scared of this team, but it doesn't mean the Cubs can't win games either. That's where I'm at.
My guest tonight is Alex Patt, the writer with the CubbieCrib.com, Stephen Nagishi on the Double A Team podcast live stream, talking with Alex, previewing the MLB opening day and where the Cubs stand this year as a whole after starting 0-2, losing to the Dodgers in Tokyo a couple of weeks ago. So, I understand that the Cubs lineup and the pitching overall is I don't want to say meh, but it's not something that you look at and say, yeah, this is a scary lineup pitching wise. They're okay as well. And the man who is responsible for putting this team together is none other than Jed Hoyer, whose contract is expiring at the end of the season. And the last 2 years has been a rather disappointing one. 83 and 79 back-to-back years. The bullpen has been a massive disappointment last year as well. They were in the playoff race, and then, the September just kind of fell off a cliff, and they missed the playoffs again with the same record as the year before. So I'm going to be honest with you, Alex. At this point, no matter what happens this year, whether they lose 100 games or even if they win the division, let's just say 88 and 74 or whatever, I just want Jed gone, because I think a lot of the consternations and the anger towards the organization, Tom Ricketts notwithstanding, and we'll get to Tom in a little bit as well, is that Jed's attitude and the way he has assembled this team since taking over from Theo Epstein leaves a lot to be desired. And I know myself and my friends who are Cubs fans, we've spoke extensively that, Jed is nothing more than a useful idiot for, the Ricketts family. And, it wouldn't shock me if the Ricketts extend them for another 5 years just to take a bullet for them. But I think that for the Cubs, we need a new voice in the front office. I think I've always said this. Jed's ceiling as an executive is that he's probably a farm director for a mid-sized market team, like Detroit, Kansas City, or even Cleveland or whatever. What do you think about Jed's future right now and the job that he has done overall? And do you want him to extend it, or do you feel like I'm okay with him being fired or resigning or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year is going to determine what happens. Obviously, I think there are things that fall on Jed Hoyer, and there are things that fall on Tom Ricketts as well, because I think there are moves that Jed Hoyer did want to make that he was not able to with what he was given from Tom Ricketts. Now,
Right.
I think the biggest organizational flaw is this idea that they just want to be good enough to win a division. You don't hear them say, I want to win a World Series. We don't hear that from them. And that it feels like you're only going to go as far as your team visualizes or less. I mean, you can try to want to win a World Series and fail, but I would rather try than fail than draw a line in the sand. And for whatever reason, the Cubs are insistent on drawing lines in the sand, financial reasons, whatever it be. That seems to be the common theme here, is that that's what they want to do. Because he made a risky move for Kyle Tucker, and I'm glad he made. Kyle Tucker is a great player, so I'm glad they made that move. But what I wish they could have done was shore up the rotation a little bit, maybe gotten one more reliever for safe measures. I really wanted Alex Bregman, and it sounds like that just wasn't in the cards. That's kind of a whatever thing at this point. It was a bummer at the time, but it just clearly wasn't meant to be. But a lot is going to ride on how this season goes. And, if he was going to be guaranteed staying around, he would have signed an extension, and he hasn't. So I think when you listen to Jed Hoyer speak, I think he knows his job is on the line. So there's a lot of pressure on him to win here in 2025. And they don't have to win a World Series to keep him around, probably in the eyes of them, but they do have to get to the postseason. If they miss the postseason, then I don't think they have much of a choice.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just don't feel confident in Jed one way or the other. I truly believe that. And, I think at some point, Jed needs to be gone. I just think that he really doesn't really inspire confidence. And, he's always talking about, the finances and stuff like that, like as if he's the owner trying to, borrowing Ricketts quote, break even and stuff like that. So, I sometimes wonder where Jed's head is right now. Is he focused on baseball, or is he just basically, I don't know, trying to appease, Ricketts and his family, for the finance. So, if that's his mind, I just don't think that, his future, at least with the Cubs, ain't going to last forever. I'm sure he's going to land somewhere because, he went to the Ivy Leagues and, he's a proven commodity within the baseball world.
He can build a farm. Like, we could give him that. He can build a farm, and he's drafted pretty well. So there would be plenty of organizations if you were looking at, say, maybe like a Carter Hawkins type role or a farm director type role, something like that. Something within a front office, definitely yes. If indeed,
I totally agree.
From
what he's done with the farm system is incredible, and that's why I say that his ceiling might be like a farm director, not a guy who runs a entire baseball organization on a third largest market in this country. So perhaps that. My guest tonight is Alex Patt, the writer from CubbieCrib.com. How concerned are you with Matt Shaw? Because one thing that stood out to me, I don't know. Excuse me, is that Craig Counsell called out Shaw for not having a great 2 games at the Tokyo series, which I kind of felt, that maybe he was unfairly being singled out, unless the question was specifically, towards, Matt Shaw's performance. And with Cam Smith already making the team and having being a base hit, less than a year after he was drafted, and the Cubs ended up having to pay a huge price to get Kyle Tucker, whose contract, of course, expires at the end of the season. Are you already having some sort of buyer's remorse that maybe the Cubs made the wrong trade here?
Not yet. I'm going to see how the whole thing with Tucker and how the season plays out. I'm not ready to go there yet. In terms of Matt Shaw, I do think that there's going to be some growing pains with Matt Shaw because he has a lot of learning to do in the big leagues, as any rookie does. And
he has a very weird
swing. Weird stance.
Actually pointed out also by Japanese TV that I was actually following as well. But go ahead. Sorry about that.
No. You literally read my mind. That's exactly where I was going with it. And I think that there's just going to be some tweaking required because he's been able to make it work in the minor leagues and college and whatnot. But as we know, the major leagues are a completely different animal. And you remember early on, Javier Baez had a big leg kick and he had to go down and rework some things. And eventually he did. So, early struggles are not going to do Matt Shaw. What's a little unsettling is that we're putting so much on Matt Shaw right now because I think Matt Shaw has a very high ceiling. I like him, but when you deal with a young prospect, there's going to be growing pains like this. third base is so important.
Yes.
And as good as Matt Shaw's ceiling is, people were sometimes talking about him like Chris Bryant. And I'm like, no, Chris Bryant was on a whole other tier. I'm not doubting Matt Shaw in any way right now, but I am just wondering how much of that rookie growing pain we're going to see and, what kind of adjustments are going to need to be made. I'm not a hitting coach. I'm not an expert. So maybe he can make kind of his slightly weirdness work, but we're just going to have to see.
Regarding PCA, do you think he will bat leadoff at some point if the Cubs offense is struggling and he's doing very well at 7 or 8 spot? Do you think that or that's too early for somebody like PCA to be even batting that early?
Maybe down the road. I think right now, the way they've set it up, they like Ian Happ in the leadoff spot because he draws walks and he is really good at hitting doubles in the gaps, leading off games at times. So I don't think we can rule it out. I think that sometimes you can argue that having a weapon like PCA down in the lineup makes things even more tough on the opponent. But if they gave him a shot at leadoff, I'd say why not? Because what he can do that we know he can do is once he gets on, he's going to be taking off right away. He'll turn singles into doubles, doubles into triples. And when he gets on base, he's not thinking of not moving. He's going to be looking to steal. On hit and runs, he's going to be taking extra bases. All he needs to do is get on base, and then he can just cause a bunch of chaos.
Right. Let's let's finish the Cubs conversation with this one. Do you think the Cubs will win the NL Central, and what do you think is the ultimate record by the end of the season?
I see their ceiling at 86 wins, and I'm 50-50 on if they could win the Central, because I still think the Brewers can make it happen. The Reds, if they're healthy, I think can be in the mix. We could say no to the Cardinals, but they are the Cardinals, so you can never fully say no on them. But until the Brewers kind of prove otherwise, it's hard for me to not still think they can. Look, they lost Willy Adames, which was a big loss. They traded Devin Williams, which is another loss, but they're able to always fill those gaps, it seems like. And Jackson Chourio, I know he had a rough day today, but he's going to have many more days that are much better than that. If Christian Yelich is healthy, William Contreras is one of the most underrated players in baseball, and they just know how to do pitching. So I think they can very well win the division. So can the Cubs, but I'm not putting money on it right now yet. Not yet.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk around the Major League Baseball. 2 years from now, including this year and next year, a lot of people are concerned about the work stoppage after next season, because of the conversation surrounding about, the cap or the floor or whatever, the spending minimum or whatever you want to call it. And there have been a lot of chatters about whether or not the baseball needs a salary cap, etc. Dick Mumford, the notoriously cheap owner of the Colorado Rockies, made that touched on that subject, not too long ago. And, he was obviously widely panned for how he is, done with the, with the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
But then, here in Chicago, we have to deal with the, I don't live in Chicago. You live in Chicago. So I apologize there for there, you hear so much story about, Tom Ricketts and his perceived cheapness, and then having to, go on CNBC to talk about his break-even stuff, etc. And then you also have an owner like Jerry Reinsdorf, notoriously cheap, and obviously doesn't really care about winning, obviously, with the White Sox, and also, what we've seen with the Bulls the last couple of decades after Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen all retired. We have too many owners like that, not just in baseball, but also probably around the league. But it seems as though baseball is a lot of fickle owners who probably wants to implement that cap badly. Are you pessimistic about the future of the baseball and that we might see a long extended, strike like we kind of saw back in 94, 95?
I think there's going to be a work stoppage, definitely, because you're going to have players who don't want a salary cap. You're going to have the owners who want a salary cap, but you're also going to have infighting because the Dodgers and the Mets are not going to want a salary cap because they are Steve Cohen and the Dodgers. Those two entities are willing to spend whatever. And, obviously the Yankees too, the Steinbrenners, they might not be the Steinbrenners they once were, but
Right.
they will still have a high payroll. So, you're going to have that issue too. So I do think that there is going to be a lengthy work stoppage. It's not going to be pretty. And yeah, it's not fun to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Couple that with the, a lot of regional sports networks shutting down. And then you also have the, ESPN wanting to end their relationship with MLB, which I think it ends after this season, of course. So there are some, negativity that's surrounding the MLB and the MLB and the economic climate of haves and have-nots that has becoming more and more, evident. Do you see that maybe this would be a time for some of the owners, new or old, or even the Ricketts, to decide, what, baseball is a dying sport. If we can't get what we want, might as well just put the team on sale and just kind of get out of the business. Right? It's just a kind of a wishful thinking on my part, as well as the others who want some massive changes.
I think there are some owners that will sell between now and then. The Twins owners were initially looking to sell. There was rumors that Art Moreno wanted to sell, but it doesn't look like that's happening now. The Ricketts are not going to sell because they own Wrigleyville. I mean, that's just they're going to be the owners for the rest of our lives, basically. So, I mean, that's kind of the reality there. But you do hear certain rumors of owners selling, and it'll be interesting with the White Sox because Jerry Reinsdorf is up there in age, and we know that once he is no longer on this earth, that his estate is going to sell that majority share of the White Sox. Now, he has the controlling share of the White Sox, but he owns like 19% of the team. But that controlling share is going to be sold, and it could be Jonathan Ishbia. So, or whatever Ishbia is.
Right. I think Matt is the one who's trying to buy the Twins, although the Paulers are wanting to keep the control of the team, which makes absolutely no sense in my opinion. So
yeah, so that now he's buying up the minority shares in the White Sox. So it looks like he's priming himself to be that next owner whenever that time comes. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, what's frustrating as a Cub fan is if you think that work stoppage is coming, then you should be spending these next few years going all in trying to win. That's the way I looked at it. But,
right.
Here we are.
Absolutely. And as we were having this conversation, Ohtani just smashed a solo home run in the season opener against the Tigers. Now it's 5-3 LA in the, I believe, in the bottom of the seventh right now. All right, let's kind of look around the, around the league and decide the, division winners and also the wild card. AL East. Boy, I think the Yankees are kind of in a deep hole with so many injuries right now. I think this is a good time for maybe Baltimore to, take the East. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Yankees are banged up, but I still have them as the favorite to win the division. I think Baltimore is very good. They had a great day today, but I don't think their pitching is quite up to par.
Okay, understood. AL Central. Now, this is probably the worst division in all of baseball right now. Outside of the White Sox, maybe anybody can win right now. Based on what I saw last year, I think Cleveland, I would have to say, would be the favorite. Do you put Cleveland or do you put somebody else there?
I think Cleveland would be my number one favorite. I think the Royals can be a real sleeper with Bobby Witt Jr. The way they turned it around last year was impressive. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're going to play quite the same way again. I could see them falling back a bit, but I could see them going either way. I could see them taking another step. I could also see them falling back a little bit. But right now, I think Cleveland is the team I would pick. They're just the organization that knows how to win, know how to do it. Their rotation isn't that great either. Like, they got some flaws, but they always just seem to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And then the American League West, Texas, Seattle, Houston looks like, they're kind of, I wouldn't want to call it falling back after, almost a decade of excellence, winning 2 World Series and multiple playoff appearances. Who do you have in that division? I like kind of a Texas as maybe a sleeper if the pitching comes around, but that's just me.
Yeah, right. I mean, the Astros have lost a lot, but they always seem to figure things out. I mean, remember when they kept winning after they lost guys like George Springer and Garrett Cole, like those guys would leave and then they would just keep re-upping their talent and keep winning. I think it's going to be Houston, my number one choice, but I think Texas can as well. It's not going to be the A's, although I think the A's are going to be more competitive than people might think because I do think they have some dudes on that team. The Angels are one of the worst organizations in sports, unfortunately. That team's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I believe there's a 3 wild card spots, right? For each league, right? Okay. Who do you have as a 3 wild card? I'm going to probably pick, the Yankees. I'm going to pick Kansas City. And then I will also pick maybe Seattle out of the AL. Who do you have coming, the 3 wildcard teams?
Okay, so just kind of going based off what I was saying about some of the other teams.
Yeah.
I have it kind of doodled out here. Let me pull this up. I think when you look at the AL East again, because they're always like multiple playoff teams from that division, right? So I think that you are going to see the Red Sox make it as a wild card. I think Baltimore can make it as a wild card. And then if I'm going to have Houston winning the division, then maybe I'll say we'll go with Texas as the wild card.
Okay. And who do you have coming out of the American League?
I'm going to say this is tough.
Yeah.
It might seem like a cheap answer, but I might be tempted to say the Yankees again just because they still have Aaron Judge.
Right.
I know they lost Garrett Cole. It's a huge, huge loss, but if they can last until the deadline, they could be able to pick up another guy. I mean, we've seen teams recently lose remember the Braves lost Acuna and they won the World Series. I believe Houston lost Verlander and they won the World Series. Like, we've seen teams lose their ace or one of their best players and still either win it all or go far. So, I mean, you look at the other teams that are in the American League and the Yankees still have the resources to get what they can get. And even if you don't have Garrett Cole, you picked up Max Fried. I know that Giancarlo Stanton has been banged up, but you brought Jazz Chisholm back. He's not the same player as Giancarlo Stanton, but that's still another guy in your lineup. And then either Stanton gets healthier again or you bring in somebody else at the deadline. You can never, ever rule out the Yankees getting any player at the deadline.
Okay, that's true. Give me your AL MVP and Cy Young Award.
MVP, I'm going to say
Judge?
Bobby Witt Jr.
Oh, okay.
Because he is a stud.
Yes.
He is. Bobby Witt Jr. is amazing. He is beyond amazing. Cy Young winner, you have to think about Cy Young because you're like, who's even, like, seems like half the pitchers are hurt in baseball, right?
Right.
It's um Cy Young winner. Garrett Cole would have been my pick before
Right. He blew
he
his
got
elbow,
hurt.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Now he's
Unfortunately.
hurt.
Right.
Yeah, he's not going to be pitching the season. I like some of the starters on the Mariners. They
Right.
got, and I know they've been bigged up a little, but like a George Kirby or a Logan Gilbert are guys I really like. So I think I could look kind of in that direction.
Yeah, I'll pick Logan Gilbert as the AL Cy Young Award winner. And AL winner. Bobby Witt's a good pick. I'm also hoping maybe Julio Rodriguez bounces back and put the Mariners on his shoulder, and then keep them in the playoff contention until the very end. So I'm just going to go wing it and say Julio Rodriguez for the Mariners. NL East, let's go. Is this finally the year for the Mets, or do you still feel like Phillies or Braves is the one that takes that division?
Yeah. The lineup for the Mets is like, okay, you got Juan Soto, you have Francisco Lindor, you
Pete
have
Alonso too, yeah.
Pete Alonso. The lineup's good. I think the rotation's pretty meh, though.
Yeah, that's
that's
true.
that's one thing that I think could kind of not stop them from making the postseason, but maybe cause a few issues.
Right.
I still like a healthy Phillies team.
Mhm.
I think the Phillies have another year, a good year or two of contending before things fall off, but Zach Wheeler's really good, obviously at the top of that rotation. And
Yeah.
you got that lineup. So I'm going to give the Phillies the edge here.
Okay. And then, I'll pick the Phillies, and then I'll have the Mets and the Braves making the play. The 2 out of the 3 playoff spots coming from that NL East there. NL Central. I'm going to go bias and say, I'll go Cubs. I think 88 wins would be probably achievable. And then maybe Milwaukee will get that other maybe spot in the wild card, in my opinion. NL West, it's Dodgers basically, pretty much. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Dodgers, and it's going to be a matter of, I think at least one of San Diego or Arizona will be a wild card team.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I changed my mind about Milwaukee. I think it's Arizona that will be getting that last wild card spot, and then 2 will be coming from the East. Whoever wins the division, and then whoever finishes second and third in that NL East, presumably, Atlanta and Philadelphia in no particular order. NL MVP, Ohtani again, or do you have somebody else?
Yeah,
Ohtani.
Ohtani. If it's not going to be Ohtani, it'll probably be Juan Soto.
Okay, that's a good one. If it's not Ohtani, then I am going to pick Bryce Harper. That's the only person that I can think of who can actually match toe to toe. NL Cy Young Award winner. I'm going to go another bias here. I think if he stays healthy, Yoshinobu Yamamoto looked like a real good pitcher. I saw, obviously the first game, he looked really great. If he stays healthy, I think he can definitely win the NL Cy Young. Who do you have winning Cy Young?
I think that's a really good pick right there. I'm not picking him, but I think some people would tell you maybe Corbin Burns now on Arizona. I'm not as sure though, because his strikeout rate has gone down a bit over the years, but he's still a good pitcher. Yeah, I mean, I think Yamamoto is a really good pick. Roki Sasaki, I think, could be a rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in an all-star mix as well. I think Zach Wheeler has a good chance too of winning Cy Young. That would be another direction you could look into. Those would probably be my top picks.
Mm-hmm. And in the World Series, is it Dodgers again?
I mean, until they prove otherwise, it's hard to go against them right now.
Mm-hmm. And you believe that there will be a work stoppage after 26, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Okay. I know this is kind of a tough spot to close this. Is there like a solution? Do you see any solution, or do you think like this is at some point one side has to kind of give up? Presumably, the owners perhaps maybe have to give up then.
Yeah, I think there's no easy answer here. I mean, this is it seems simple on the surface, but I think it's very complicated. And yeah, you're gonna have some ugliness here, I think, unfortunately. So just be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. Alex, I appreciate your time tonight. For joining me. Make sure to follow Alex on his Twitter handle. You can see there, Chai Fan Pat 12. You could also follow his work on Cubbiescrib.com, I believe. That's the website, correct?
Yep, fan-sided Cubby Crib. I'm also doing a little Blackhawks writing now for Shy City Sports, and be sure to check out. Yeah. It's I've done a few articles there, and then I do podcasting through the Garden and Swirsky Sports, talking to a lot of Bears and Cubs there.
Outstanding, Alex. Thanks for your time tonight. Enjoy your Major League Baseball season. I look forward to having you on again at some point to discuss where the Cubs are. Hopefully, they're in a much better position than we all expected to be, and then hopefully we'll talk about the other Chicago sports teams as well. Have a great night. Thanks for joining me tonight once again.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much.
Have a great night. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you very much for joining me for 80 people who came to join us tonight. Make sure to check in tomorrow. I will be doing a live stream with draft expert EJ Schneider, who I've had the chance to do a live stream last year during the NFL, just prior to the NFL draft, that is. And we are expected to welcome him tomorrow night. I got to double check to make sure the time because he is on the West Coast. Just 1 second as well. So tomorrow night, Friday, welcoming EJ at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. So make sure if you're a NFL draft fan and if you've followed EJ on Twitter and wanted to ask questions, whether it's Bears or any other teams related, I'll make sure to post that on X, and then hopefully you'll join us and ask any questions you have. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night, 8:30, with the special guest EJ Schneider. Till then, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.